Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We bring you stories of faith, love, and devotion. Yeah, just kidding, please help us grow by hitting that like button. Now on to the story. My wife had an affair 4 years ago. Now I have an STD advice. Hi Reddit. TLDR, my wife had an affair several years ago. I found out at the time, but I recently contracted an STD which my wife confirmed was from the original affair, which went longer than she originally told me. I laid out what I need if I were to continue with our relationship. However, she is resistant to helping me as much as I need her to. I, 32M, just over 3 years ago I found out my high school sweetheart wife, 31F, was having an affair. I was absolutely devastated. She didn't break off the affair immediately and stayed at this person's house for 2 days whilst I was still overseas. She lied about the affair on every occasion with a sprinkle of truth in between. It took months for me to find out 60 to 75% of the story as she slowly drip-fed me information. Over that several-month period, my wife was of little help to me. She was a great wife outside of anything in the healing process, and this kept me hopeful that something would change. Eventually, we fell back into a normal routine, but I still had a lot of residual damage that remained. Later that year my wife told me she was pregnant, and we welcomed our daughter into the world in late 2020. Things were great, but I still knew that these lingering feelings weren't going away, so I wrote my wife a letter. This letter explained everything from my perspective. It was over 8 pages long and I wrote it over a period of months, deciding whether I would give it to her or not. Finally, a day came, and I couldn't help but want to give her the letter. We had just had a small fight and I know it probably wasn't the best time for her to read it, but I did, and this was her response after asking her what she thought. I feel really sorry for you. I left it at that in the hope that she would really understand my struggles, but instead, it was never spoken of again. Several months later, 2 months ago, I contracted an STD. My wife also came down with the same STD. This STD is lifelong, several months before she supposedly started the affair, 2018. I know this is going to sound naive, but when my wife first contracted this STD, I believed I had given it to her. I had somewhat similar symptoms since I was a teenager and had just assumed that I had passed it on to her eventually. In retrospect, this was stupid, and I should have been checked the moment my wife was confirmed to have contracted the STD. So after several hours of pleading with my wife to tell me the truth, she told me that the affair lasted longer than originally stated and that she had sex with this man as a one-night stand several months earlier and then started a full affair with him several months later. This is somewhat believable as I looked over her phone records at the time and details of her location were freely available on her mobile phone bill. Her story does align, however. She shows many traits of a liar, such as not answering my question with a yes or no answer, blaming me for not getting over the affair, and tends to have many episodes of inappropriate yelling, etc. Upon finding out the second chapter of the affair, I laid it down bare to my wife and told her I need her to step up and really help me through this if she wants this relationship to survive. If not, we need to separate. I asked for therapy, transparency, time to talk about the affair so I can lay it to rest, full accountability, understanding of my emotions, and for her to be proactive in helping me, such as reading books on infidelity recovery and infidelity PTSD. She didn't do any of these things on her own accord. It always required a push from me and a fight between to get anywhere. She did listen to a couple of podcasts, I believe, but nothing ever came of it, and her continual denial of helping me through this ensued. Our marriage has been a yo-yo for the last 2 months. I have to continually ask her to be proactive. Generally, the arguments start with me asking her to do better, and she gets her hackles up because she thinks that attending therapy and sending me an apologetic message maybe once or twice a week is all I should need. She has done bits and pieces throughout, so I do have to give her some credit, but a lot of it is what she wants. For instance, I asked her to write a letter outlining everything that happened over the 8 or so months, as she struggled to talk about it, and it was her suggestion. The letter took 3 weeks to write, and I started to really feel as though my wife was really putting in the effort to explain what happened during those months. Upon reading the letter, I immediately noticed it was short. The letter had 2 paragraphs about how she felt when she started the affair. We have spoken about this at length. 2 paragraphs about the storyline which lasted 8 months, and 2 paragraphs of an apology. I was somewhat appreciative but pretty bummed. She could have put so much more detail in the letter about what happened, but I am now left with many unanswered questions. After all, that was the purpose of writing the letter. Admittedly, we have only been to therapy 3 times, and I find the therapist good, but the therapist also cheated on her husband many years ago. Some of the things she has said are contrary to my beliefs. For instance, I wanted my wife to provide phone records from before the affair had started to ensure that this is what she has explained. My wife refused, and the therapist agreed with my wife, stating, "And what good will that bring?" I was quite stunned. I thought the therapist would ask my wife to be fully transparent so I don't have to live with the thought that my wife could possibly be a serial cheater, but that wasn't the case, and I'm still unsure whether this therapist is right for us. I would also like to clarify that my wife is still a great wife. She has agreed to spice up our sex life, which has been great. She is a great mother to our beautiful daughter, and she is just an all-round great partner. There has been no sign of any infidelity within the last 3 or so years, and I do believe without a shadow of a doubt that she is sorry for having an affair rather than dealing with our marital issues at the time. I am at the point where I want to give up. My wife believes that what she has provided and is currently providing is more than enough, and anything above that is crazy. So much so that she will probably end up walking away if I don't accept therapy and a message every so often apologizing for the things she has done. My wife is aware that I have PTSD from all of this. I have spoken to her at length about why I think I need the things I have asked for, but she pushes so hard on her line of what is appropriate that I am starting to think that maybe I am asking too much. I understand that it has been years, but I never got to heal initially, and facing a lifelong STD and finding out about a further betrayal recently has really put me into a bad headspace. Get a new therapist. Yours is a quack and affair apologist. Therapists should never make value judgments in session. The whole point of therapy is to provide an environment for clients to air feelings, explore them and analyze them. It is not a place to tell them what they should or shouldn't do in the therapist's opinion. What good will that bring is a value judgment. It implies the therapist knows exactly what your state of mind is, what motivates you, why, where it will go and how your wife will respond in this hypothetical version of events. All details the therapist cannot know. An actual therapist would have intervened with something like, "And what good do you think will come of this? What purpose does this hold for you? Why is that important to you?" And then again quizzing you on your answers to examine your motivations and hopefully make them apparent to you for analysis. I appreciate this doesn't engage with the wider topic of your post, but that bit made me a bit mad. As someone working in the territory, to hear a professional say something like that, as well as apparently oversharing, "Else how did you know she had an affair? That's not stuff you tell clients," is disgraceful. Here is some advice. Get a DNA test on kids. Leave her because she truly is not remorseful at all, and not only is truth tickling you, but she doesn't think that you will leave her, and that is a reason she acts the way she does. The fact that you putting more effort to save that relationship than her who caused the issues with infidelity in the first place and gave you an STD is proof enough it isn't worth saving. Contact as many lawyers as you can because it's obvious she's only sorry that she got caught, not what she did to you. I hope you find peace. This. Have you had your child DNA tested? This is my first question, and because you continue to let her rug sweep everything, nothing changes. I would serve her with divorce papers. You can always stop the process, but at least then she might get serious, but I really think her heart is not in it and she is a lost cause. It is not up to you to do the hard yards, it is her. It did cross my mind, but my child is a spitting image of me, and I am quite certain that she was not having an affair anywhere close to that time. You already said that the affair was longer than you thought it was. Mate, let me tell you, do the DNA test, because until you have solid proof that this is your kid, it will plague your mind for the rest of your life. And let's be honest, we heard plenty of time about the kid looking like the dad, but often it's just the dad looking for resemblance to avoid the truth rather than real resemblance. You are missing the point. I think your problem is that your wife doesn't take you seriously. She knows that with a fight and minimum effort from her you will eventually resign yourself and go back to be the safe providing husband. You need to shock her into realizing you are serious about your pain and the level of mistrust she has brought into the relationship. A DNA test, even if you are 100% certain it's your child, might make her realize you are reaching your limit. Deacon. Story 2. Emotional cheating. Struggling. My husband fell in love with his best friend Emily a month before we got married in 2021. This happened around Halloween time, which is a very traumatic time for me. We were long distance and he was away from home. He got to go visit for a week and visit family and friends in his hometown. I wasn't able to tag along this time. He went to hang out with Emily and apparently everything was fine until he dropped her off. It felt weird to them, like there was a different vibe, and my husband was confused. He later called her and asked if she felt it too. She said yes and that it felt like a date. He just brushes it off and doesn't think about it until he goes back home. This is where it gets messy. It's Halloween. Very traumatic for me, and I told him that I needed him. Didn't tell him why, but I didn't think I had to explain myself. I just need his comfort. Anyways, he blew me off and went to a Halloween party, told me he would call me when he got home, and got drunk at the party. Him and his buddy were talking and apparently Emily came up in the convo, and my husband thought it would be funny for them to call Emily and just mess with her. Ricky, my husband's friend, called Emily out for being in love with my husband. And she admitted it. Then my husband left the party and they talked about it. He said that maybe that weird feeling he got during their hangout might have been an attraction to her as well. She said that he needed to tell me. My husband agreed but waited a week because I was clearly going through a very rough time because of the trauma surrounding Halloween. He told me. He said he felt disgusted with himself and that he only wanted to be with me, and that these feelings just happened when I asked what kind of feelings they were. He said, I feel the same way about her as I do you, so I said I wasn't going to fight for him to stay. He said he needed me and my comfort. I love him, so I drove 3 hours to see him. When I got there he said he told Emily he was putting a pause in their friendship. He told me, you can't make me choose between you guys. My feelings hit me late and I was in shock, I guess. My priority at the time was to comfort my sobbing husband. A week or two go by, I find out Emily has been in love with my husband this whole time and remained friends with him. It took my husband 3 months to finally block and remove Emily from our lives. This only happened because I had a complete emotional meltdown about the whole situation. A year has passed and I am still so angry and disgusted. I love my husband, but this anger is a lot stronger, especially now that I'm 2 weeks postpartum. He's an amazing husband and dad. He just handled this entire situation the wrong way. He hurt me the most and she's off living her best life with her boyfriend and I'm here stuck with my husband forever. I blame him for my newfound insecurity and anger. I think about divorcing him a lot more now. I don't know how to get over this. I desperately want to. I don't want to leave him, but I also don't want to be in a marriage with someone that I can never trust 100% again. ETA, I was very in my head and heart when writing this at 3 a.m. We are in marriage counseling and he has been doing everything he can to make me feel secure in our relationship. He does feel remorse for hurting me the way he did. He didn't realize how heavy of a toll it was taking on me until I broke down. On the outside I seemed unfazed and didn't talk about it. We talk about it now and he validates my feelings and realizes I was the only victim in this situation. He isn't a bad man. The only mistake that was made in my eyes is how he handled it. Thank you guys for your positive comments. That's what I needed to hear. Same ass name bruh, crying face, I hate Emily now. I'm sorry, crying face, but it FR is always an Emily doing something. I hate them Emily's dead ass, I don't care about the good ones. And you have my full support and I hope things turn out the way that'll fulfill your feelings now, 2 hearts. Same but thank you, like brown skin, I appreciate that. Not surprising, Emily has been a top name for girls for like 145 years, including being the most popular around the turn of the current century. Have you sought out individual therapy to help you resolve, or at least take action on the Halloween trauma? The way you describe your husband, he seems like a loyal partner, maybe a little tone deaf, but not divorce worthy. That is a situation that the two of you can resolve in marriage counseling sessions, being totally open about feelings. Yes. I have done individual therapy. I was actually in therapy at the time, which is why it was so hard for me at the time. Everything was brought to the surface. I did work through my trauma though. I had a great Halloween for the first time in years and didn't think about what had happened to me. It doesn't really affect me anymore. You are right about him though. We're currently going to work the rest out in MC. I believe that you are making the right decision in your case. Give MC a chance and see how that works out. You still have time to successfully move on if it doesn't work, but I believe that if you are brutally honest about how his behavior made you feel, then there is a good chance that he will respond 100% correctly to that. It seems that he could have physically cheated with Emily at any time during the past and stayed loyal to you, so start there and deal with the emotional cheating that he may not have realized that he was doing, since by how you wrote out the timeline, it doesn't appear that he had any desire to take things further. If my wife had said I feel the same way about her, him, as I do regarding someone she had any kind of relationship with, there would never have been a wedding or anything else for that matter. He should have blocked her the day they had the discussion, and the only acceptable comment from him would have been, "You know you are the most important person to me. You are the person I want to marry and spend the rest of my life with. I won't put any other woman equal to or above you, and I have blocked Emily on everything to make sure you and her both know that." Truth. We did sweep it under the rug and we both regret that. I didn't understand how I was feeling about the situation either, so that didn't help. It was like a month later after we got married that I actually sat down and figured it out. Another month goes by and I just crack. That same day he tells her goodbye officially. She didn't move on during the pause, skeptical, she moved on a few months after. Not a good idea, but I used a burner account to see what she was up to because I kept obsessing over her. She's not a very mentally well person either. She has a lot of trauma and sought out my husband for comfort instead of seeking professional help. It's been like that for years, even before I entered the picture. She was very attached to my husband. But he had called her after 3 months in North Carolina and told her that my marriage is more important to me. "I'm sorry, but our friendship can never be fixed," she cried on the phone. Said she understood and had hoped maybe he would have chosen her. "I just hate her so much, you know. She used to say how much she loved us together and how I was perfect for him and all this other stuff. Whole time she was in love with him. I have no doubt that my husband loves me and has no true feelings for her. He would have put up a fight if he did. The thing that hurts me is that I felt like a second choice. I know I wasn't, and he would have picked me anyways. It just wasn't dealt with fast enough. He wanted everyone to be happy. Unfortunately, he handled everything incorrectly from the beginning and made it worse for me, which in turn made it worse for him, and now we have this huge cloud over our marriage. Fortunately, we are seeking MC. It's not entirely hopeless. He's been doing everything right since that phone call to her was made. I would be upset at the fact it took him 3 months to cut her off completely, and the fact he still communicated with her after they expressed they shared similar feelings, instead cutting it off immediately after. But I think with time and therapy you will heal. It's just taking a little while cause you're postpartum and your emotions are amplified. Trust, she is not living her best life, she's living her life knowing she's been in love with someone who will never choose her. She wasted her time probably believing someday he'll pick her, and when he didn't, she settled for plan because she had no choice but best believe given the opportunity she'd be with your husband. Best advice I can give is, don't think of the bad or the hurt, but think of it as learning experience for a new and better life. Think of this as the truth coming to light and getting rid of the bad and unnecessary before your baby was born, cause honestly, can you imagine this coming out later when your baby is older? It would have been 10x more hurtful, cause more feelings would have been involved. You got the bad out the way and now you can live a full life with no one having secret feelings and actually breaking up your family. Your husband took his time and that's bad, but he got it done. Give him partial credit. I would be upset too, but they weren't really even communicating after they expressed similar feelings. They talked, he told me, went North Carolina with her for 3 months, then finally called her to let her know that he's going to cut her off completely. There wasn't any other conversation besides the confession and the goodbye forever. That's comforting to know at least. But you're completely right on everything. I'm glad he told me a week after it happened. He would have told me the day of, but I wouldn't have been emotionally able to handle it at all. He definitely took his time but got it done. Give credit where credit is due. We hope that by sharing these stories with interested folks like you, we can help people recognize the signs of a relationship in trouble, and avoid so many of these heartbreaking situations yourselves. Have a good day or night, wherever you are.